Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next video on the major functions of the human resources management practice. And to talk about the next function, which is employee and labor relations, um, whether a organization is unionized or non-unionized, leaders of organizations must be able to handle individual labor relations or group labor relations. So in countries around the world, you'll have something that we refer to as labor unions. And labor unions were built because the employees felt that it was better to reach a consensus as a group, or it was easier for them to make changes within an organization as a group than individuals. So that's where you'll hear about employees unionizing. You'll also hear about some workers will strike. So if unions have voted for an increase in pay, and leaders essentially reject that pay, then those employees will strike, right? So a worker strike is essentially where the workers refuse to work, right? And they feel that they have this power, they have this voice, because all of those employees collectively have agreed not to work and to strike. And in many cases, whenever these employees strike, they are able to receive what they have requested, because whenever you have these worker strikes, most of the time it is because of a wage increase or things like that. So that's where individuals will unite for a common cause, to make a positive impact to work environments, to the whole employee collectively from a financial perspective. Also, when we talk about employee relations, we always want to, just as we have public relations, where we have individuals within the organizations to share what the organization is doing internally, we also have to have the HR manager to manage employee relations. So we need an internal resource to communicate with the employee base of the things that the leadership of the organization has decided upon. Whether they are looking to acquire an organization, whether they are looking to implement a new technology system. You have to have the same level of communication from an employee relations perspective as you do with the public and your shareholders. So if you're a public company, you have public relations to discuss with the shareholders who are investing in your company all the things that you are doing, right? Without employee relations, you may not have a product or service to profit off of for those shareholders. So that employee relations individual is actually more important than the public relations resource within an organization that shares information with the shareholders. Okay, so employee relations, that employee relations individual is very important, and in most cases, that is an individual within the HR department. So next, we're going to discuss, who performs these human resources functions. Okay. Now, if we look at the individuals, if we look at the resources of an HR department, you will first at the top level have an HR executive. You'll have a chief human resources officer. Okay, and that chief human resources officer will oversee all HR professionals within the headquarters or across the entire world. Okay, so if you have a multinational company, if you have an organization based in India, but you also have offices in South America, if you have offices in Australia, if you have offices in North America, that chief human resources officer is overseeing every single human resources representative at every single location. Okay. That chief human resources officer is responsible for all activities for every employee within an organization. So whenever we are discussing any policies, any procedures, any onboarding documentation, that chief human resources officer is responsible for reviewing any new policies, approving those policies, and reviewing and approving any kind of changes to those policies. So going back to the internal and external communications, that chief human resources officer is essentially the individual responsible for everything in the organization in regards to human resources. Okay. Now, moving down to other roles within the HR function, within the HR department, you also have individuals we refer to as HR generalists. And HR generalists are those that are knowledgeable in different aspects of human resources management. So what we mean by that is that HR generalist will be the person that an employee goes to in terms of onboarding. That it will be the individual that someone will go to for their 401k, for their retirement plans. It will be an individual that someone would go to for insurance. Right. So that HR generalist is essentially the person that works closely with those third parties. So the people who handle the 401k, the 401k providers, I should say. It is the individual that works closely with the insurance provider. And it is that generalist is someone that handles all of the questions, or many of the questions, that the entire workforce would have. Right. So in many cases, based on how large the organization is, each site within an organization would have one or many HR generalists, based on the amount of questions that would come through from an HR perspective for that organization's workforce. In terms of the variations of HR departments, again, that goes back to how large or small or dispersed your organization actually is. Okay. Now, given the pandemic of 2020, which I refer to it as, we had a lot of employees within workforces around the world that began to work remotely. They began to work from home, right? So from an HR perspective, there were things that had to be resolved. There were things that had to be changed in terms of policies, in terms of HR policies, right? So we're seeing a shift in HR approaches, because for organizations that previously were all on site, many of those organizations have employees still working within the offices, and then they have other organizations working. They have other individuals working from home. So because of that, there are some HR policies and procedures that had to be modified, if you will. Okay. Now the last thing we want to discuss is, how an organization would outsource HR function, human resources functions. So with many large organizations, because they literally have tens of thousands of employees or hundreds of thousands of employees, it would take a considerable amount of time to run payroll twice a month or once a month, okay? Because of that, there are services that are available, such as companies such as ADP and Accenture, that will handle all of those payroll needs for organizations. A lot of organizations will also outsource the insurance. They will outsource 401k. So you'll have these third parties that specialize, as I said before, in payroll, in retirement accounts, in insurance. And they handle all of that for a number of organizations around the world. Now, if you are starting your own company, right? Or if you are advising an organization, because those companies such as ADP specialize in payroll, that's what they do every single day, day in and day out. I would outsource those services to that organization that's their main line of business, to alleviate that workload of my employees. Okay, so again, outsourcing HR functions is just one consideration. Organizations large and small do actually outsource those HR functions, such as payroll, such as insurance, as well as your 401k and retirement. So that is what we're going to discuss in this portion of week one. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.